I've always known that not every family is what it seems. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw in Tenny's home. If you had told me years ago that a girl could sleep with her own mother's husband and destroy everything, I would have sworn it was a lie. But I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Tenny was my closest friend. We met in JSS2 and became like sisters. We went to the same school, sat in the same row, walked home together every day, and even shared food. Her house was like my second home. I used to greet her mother with hugs, and sometimes I slept over during holidays. Her stepfather, Baba Sekiru, was a quiet man. Very strict, never smiled much, but he provided for the family. Paid school fees. Bought food. People in the area respected him. He was known as a serious man who didn't joke around. But from the beginning, I always felt something strange about him. I remember the first time I noticed something. Tenny and I were watching a movie in her sitting room. She had just bathed, and her wrapper was a bit loose. When she stood to adjust the volume, her stepfather passed by and his eyes didn't leave her body. It wasn't the normal glance. It was long. Intentional. Disgusting. I kept quiet that day, but it stuck in my mind. Weeks passed, and I began to notice more things. Tenny started acting different. She would avoid eye contact sometimes. She would change the topic quickly when I mentioned her stepfather. And then came the new clothes. She started showing up with fancy slippers, new earrings, perfume that smelled like something imported. We were both from humble homes. Her mother sold vegetables in the market. So where was all this coming from? One day I asked her, "Tenny, where are you getting all these things from?" She smiled and said her mom bought them. But I knew her mother wasn't earning enough to buy those kinds of things regularly. I didn't push it. But the feeling in my chest didn't go away. Another day, I passed by their house unexpectedly. The back door was open, so I decided to surprise her. As I stepped into the corridor, I heard voices. Low. Intimate. It was her and her stepfather. I heard him say, "Don't worry, your mom will be back by 4. My stomach turned. I hid behind the kitchen wall, and minutes later, he came out adjusting his belt. She came out next, fixing her wrapper. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I left the house quietly that day, without saying a word. I didn't look back. I didn't even let her know I was there. From that moment, I knew something was very, very wrong. And deep down, I knew it wasn't the first time. For a long time, I didn't know what to do with the secret I was carrying. It felt like fire in my chest. I couldn't sleep properly. I would close my eyes and see Tenny's face. Then her stepfather's face. Then her mother's. And I would feel sick all over again. I kept thinking, what if I was wrong? What if it wasn't what I thought it was? But deep down, I knew the truth. I had seen enough. Had enough. Still, I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I wanted to tell someone. I wanted to talk to my aunt, who raised me. She was a tough woman and always knew what to do. But each time I opened my mouth, fear closed it again. What if she told the wrong person? What if it got back to Tenny? What if a stepfather came for me? In this part of the world, when things like this happen, they tell the girl to keep quiet. They say, "Don't bring shame to the family." They ask, "Why didn't you say no?" even if the girl was young, afraid, and confused. I didn't want to be dragged into that kind of mess. So I shut my mouth. But the guilt didn't leave me. Every time I saw Tenny's mother at the market, my stomach would twist. She would wave at me, smiling, calling me my second daughter. She had no idea what was happening in her own home. I once asked Tenny, casually, "Do you get along with your stepdad?" Her face changed. She said, "He's okay." Then quickly changed the topic. That was all the answer I needed. Then, one afternoon at school, I saw something strange. Tenny's phone fell while she was standing up from her desk. I picked it up and the screen lit up. There was a message notification that read, "I miss you. Same time tonight." No name. Just a number. But my heart dropped. She snatched the phone from me quickly and didn't say anything. Just gave a half smile like nothing happened. That evening, I followed her after school. She usually said she was going home straight, but this time, I saw her walk into a small hotel not far from the junction. A cheap one. She stayed inside for about an hour. When she came out, her stepfather was driving away. I ran back home before she saw me. That night, I couldn't eat. I cried quietly in my room, pressing my face into the pillow. This was no mistake. It was no one-time shame. It was a full relationship. Ongoing. Hidden in plain sight. And the worst part. Her mother still had no idea. She still cooked for that man. Still thanked him for taking care of her children. I wanted to scream. But in a town where people keep quiet to protect names and reputations, even screaming felt dangerous. It was a Sunday afternoon. The air was hot, and everything felt normal, too normal. I had just returned from choir practice when I heard shouting down the street. At first, I thought it was a regular husband and wife quarrel. In our neighborhood, those were common. But this one was different. It was coming from Tenny's compound. I rushed outside and found neighbors already gathered, standing at a distance. Some were whispering. Some had their hands over their mouths. Then I heard it, the voice that froze me in place. Tenny's mother. She was screaming. Not just angry screaming, it was a kind of pain I had never heard before. Like someone's heart was being cut open while they were still alive. I pushed closer through the crowd. What I saw is something I'll never forget. Tenny's mother was on her knees in front of her husband, crying, begging, holding on to his wrapper. "Tell me it's a lie," she kept shouting. "Tell me you didn't sleep with my daughter." She wasn't even crying tears. Her face was dry but full of pain. Like the tears had dried up inside her. Tenny stood behind her mother, shaking. Her wrapper was loose, her eyes red. She looked like a ghost, empty and small. And Baba Sikiru? He stood there, arms folded, lips tight, saying nothing. He didn't defend himself. He didn't deny it. He didn't even say sorry. Then Tenny's mother turned to her daughter and slapped her. Hard. "You," she said. "My own blood. My own child." Tenny fell to the ground but didn't fight back. She just curled up and covered her face. Not one word came from her mouth. Some women from the compound tried to lift the mother. Others were holding Tenny back. The entire street washed. Nobody could pretend anymore. One old man asked, "So it's true?" Another woman spat on the ground and said, "Abomination." Some said the mother came back from the market earlier than planned and caught them in the sitting room, fully naked. Not even trying to hide. Just sitting there like it was normal. That was when I realized this was the moment I had feared all along, the day when secrets could no longer hide. The neighbors dragged Baba Sikiru out of the house. He didn't fight. He didn't even speak. He walked out like nothing happened. He entered his car and drove away, leaving chaos behind. They say Tenny's mother fainted that night. Someone called a pastor to pray. Others said she should be taken to her family house to rest. Tenny didn't go with her. She stayed behind, alone. People blamed her. Called her names. But nobody blamed him. Not loudly. Because in our town, when things go wrong between men and girls, everyone acts like the girl planned it. Even when she was a child. Even when she didn't know how to escape. After the whole thing exploded in the compound, you would think people would support Tenny. That someone would speak up for her. But no. Instead, the blame started falling on her head like heavy rain. People didn't even wait to hear her side. They already picked what they wanted to believe. She was always too forward, one woman in the compound said. Did you see how she used to wear tight skirts around that man? Another added. A step further is still a father. A well-trained girl will never allow such, someone else said. And just like that, the story became her fault. Nobody talked about Baba Sikiru. Nobody said, he's an adult. He knew better. No one mentioned that he was the one who had the power, the control, and the keys to everything in that house. They said she tempted him. They said she opened her legs. They said she wanted it. Even some of our classmates at school started talking. I heard two girls behind me whispering during break. You know it's not new. Some girls just like older men. The other replied, but her own stepfather. That one is madness. And they laughed. I wanted to fight them, but I didn't. I just sat there, burning inside. One time, my own aunt said, that kind of girl, you don't bring her into your house again. She can destroy any home. It shocked me because this was the same woman who used to say Tenny was like a daughter. Now she said she was dangerous. But Tenny, she didn't say anything to anyone. She didn't defend herself. She stopped going out. I heard she didn't eat for days. She just stayed indoors, lying on the same spot on her bed. Her mother had packed her things and moved to her family's house in the next town. Nobody knew if she would return. Some said she was seeking help from a pastor. Some said she was going mad. She stopped selling in the market. Tenny was left alone in the house, with no one, and nothing. I went to visit her one evening. I found her sitting outside, looking at nothing. Her hair was rough, eyes swollen. She looked like someone who had cried for days without tears left. She didn't speak at first. Just nodded when I sat beside her. Then she said, you know the worst part. I never told my mom. I wanted to. But I was scared she would hate me. Now she hates me anyway. I held her hand, not knowing what to say. I couldn't lie and say things would be okay. Because in our place, girls like her rarely get a second chance. They carry the shame even when they didn't create it. That night, as I left her house, I looked at the other compounds. Lights were on. People were cooking, laughing, living their lives like nothing happened. But in that one house, shame lived alone in silence. A week after everything blew up, people from the church came to visit Tenny's house. Not to support her. Not to pray for her healing. They came to correct her. It was two women and a young pastor. They walked into the compound like they were doing God's work, holding their Bibles and frowning like Tenny was some kind of devil. I stood outside the gate and watched because Tenny had asked me to come over that day. I wasn't sure if I should go inside, so I waited. I could hear the pastor's voice through the window. You have brought shame upon your body and your family, he said. You must confess and ask for forgiveness. Tenny didn't say anything. One of the women added, you allowed the devil to use you. You should have run away the first time he touched you. I closed my eyes. They didn't ask what her stepfather did. They didn't ask how long it went on. They didn't ask if she was forced. They just wanted her to say sorry. Like it was her own evil alone. After almost 30 minutes, the door opened. The pastor and the women came out with straight faces. No one said goodbye to her. They just left, like they had cleaned their hands from her situation. I walked in and found Tenny sitting on the edge of her chair, her hands clenched. They said I should fast for 7 days, she said, smiling without joy. To remove the spirit of lust. I sat beside her, speechless. She turned to me. Do they think I wanted this? Do they think I planned this? I wanted to lie and say no one believed that. But they did. Almost everyone did. Later that week, her uncle came. Her mother had told the family everything. They decided Tenny should be taken to the village for a spiritual cleansing. They said what happened was a curse, and the only way to break it was to take her to a traditional priest. She didn't fight it. She just followed. She told me, maybe if I go, they'll stop looking at me like I'm a demon. They carried her things into the uncle's car and drove her away. No hugs. No goodbyes. Just a quiet escape from shame. That night, I stood outside and looked at her window. The light was off. The house was too quiet. And for the first time, I felt afraid, not for her, but for every girl like her who is forced to carry a sin that wasn't theirs. We live in a place where adults protect each other, even when they are guilty. Where the victim is told to be quiet, be respectful, and carry her pain in silence. Tenny didn't just lose her mother. She lost her home, her school, her voice. And no one called her a victim. They called her a disgrace. Weeks passed. The street slowly returned to normal. People started talking about other things, a stolen phone in the next compound, someone's child who passed jam, another wedding coming up. But in that quiet house where Tenny lived, nothing felt normal. She no longer came outside. Her curtains stayed closed. Even when Nipper brought light, you wouldn't see the glow from her window. The house was like a ghost lived there. I still visited her sometimes. She barely spoke. Just stared at the ceiling or lay on the floor. I brought food, but most times, she didn't eat. She just said, "Thank you," and pushed the plate aside. One day, she looked at me and said something that still stuck in my chest. If I die, would they finally say it wasn't my fault? I froze. She wasn't crying. She was calm. Too calm. Like someone who had already made up her mind. I begged her. Told her she still had a future. That she could leave this town, start over. But she laughed softly and said, "Where will I go? Who will take me in? What job will I do? Everyone knows me now. I am the girl who slept with her mother's husband." I didn't know what to say. Because even though it hurt to hear, she was right. People don't forget things like this around here. They hold on to scandal like it's a souvenir. Then, one early morning, she was gone. She didn't leave a note. She didn't pack much. She just disappeared. Some said she traveled to Lagos. Others said her mother's cousin came to take her to a church outside town. But no one really knew. Her house stayed locked after that. Dust started gathering at the door. Weeds grew through the cement cracks. And just like that, she became a ghost, not dead, but forgotten. Her mother never came back. Some say she's still in her village, going from one prayer house to another. They say she doesn't speak much anymore. And Baba Sikiru? I heard he remarried 2 towns away. A younger woman. Nobody there knows what he did. He started fresh, as if nothing happened. That's how life goes here. The man moves on. The girl disappears. And the story fades like it never existed. But I remember. I remember the girl who used to laugh during break time. Who loved mangoes. Who tied her wrapper too high because she didn't like sweat on her legs. I remember how she looked the day her world collapsed. I remember everything. And I'm writing it now because I want someone to know that it happened. That it was real. That Tenny wasn't a witch. She wasn't a seductress. She was a victim in a house full of silence. And maybe, if even one person believes her now, wherever she is, she'll know she wasn't completely alone.